Girl 101 signing on. It's eclipse number 2 happening in the month of October. Actually, straight out of the gate on the 2nd of October, we're having a full moon in Aries. So it is still eclipse vibrations and season, and we're not out of that ethereal, mystical, almost poignant parts in our paths. So hang tight. We're all in this together. Gemini Rising. I am a practicing Hellenistic Western tropical astrologer. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for your continuing support. Trusty kicking goals out there. I've provided my email. You can reach out to me now for readings regarding astrology, or you may even be interested in a tarot consultation. Reach me at the email that I provided at the beginning of the video and in the description box below. If you're a Gemini rising, Mercury is the lord of your chart. He's your planetary ruler, ruling your first house. It's a busy month. Let's get into it. Gemini rising. The solar planetary transits that are continuing in the month of October are pretty consistent, but there are two big changes happening. But before we get into that, Neptune and Saturn are still retrograding in your 10th house of your career, your public image, your professional life. It's a very public place. It's the place of your name, how people connect with you, what you do professionally. Gemini rising is an archaeologist, for example. People know you by what you do in the public. It's a very public space, the 10th house. And you have Neptune and Saturn retrograding here. Saturn goes direct on November 15 and Neptune goes direct on December 7. Uranus, which is not long gone, retrograde in your 12th house being Taurus, goes direct on January 30, 2025. So the big news of the slower planetary transits is on the 9th of October, Jupiter, which has been transiting in your first house, now stations to go into a retrograde. It won't go direct until February 4, 2025. For you as a Gemini rising, it's important to understand what's going on in your angular houses. They are house 1, house 4, house 7, and house 10. These houses are extremely intimately connected to you, how you're functioning at any given moment of time when you've got significant planets transiting in those houses. Also be aware of your own natal chart, where your personal planets are in your chart. If any of the transiting planets are having significant oppositions, conjunctions, these are going to be important for you to understand how these transits are assisting or what's going on for you personally connected to your own natal chart. Again, reach out to me if you would like to connect and we can do an astrology natal reading for you. So on the 9th of October, Jupiter's starting to retrograde in your first house. Significant. Jupiter is in detriment in the sign of Gemini, being your first house. Why is it in detriment? Because Jupiter does not feel like it's in its right skin. It's like a completely different character compared to itself, because your ruling planet Mercury is always opposing Jupiter. So Jupiter and Mercury are very different, shall we say, planetary characters. They don't work well together. They're just very, very different, and that's okay. But why we've got when we do have a planet in detriment in a very angular house, which it is for you in your first, that doesn't operate so well, you get savvy. You get to learn street smarts about how to be more creative with that planet and produce easier results than being in conflict or not understanding what Jupiter does for you in your own natal chart. So Jupiter now going retrograde until February 4, 2025. Then on the 11th of October, only 2 days later, another slow planet, being Pluto, which has been retrograding in Capricorn, your eighth house, now stations to go direct. Pluto will be leaving your eighth house in your lifetime come November. So a little ways to go yet for you, Gemini rising. On the 2nd of October, there's a new moon solar eclipse happening in the sign of Libra. This is your fifth house and it trines your first house. So you have a auspicious, quiet, joyful new beginning, shall we say. This could be a pregnancy. This could be the subject of children. It could be sports, athletics, something that puts you more in a public space. It's the house of fame. It's the house of investment, romantic partnerships, dating. It's the house of gambling. It's the house where we get our adrenaline pumping. We get our freak flag on with our personal creations that we make with our own minds and our hands. So a brand new beginning happening for you on the 2nd of October in the fifth house of joy and pleasure. Wow, interesting. Please share in the description box below for you, Gemini rising. Are you having any new beginnings here? Or are romantic partners having their moment in the spotlight on the 2nd of October? Then on the 17th of October, there's a full moon in Aries, and that's your 11th house, and that's opposing that fifth house. So it's on the opposite side of your natal chart, shall we say, if you're a Gemini rising. So come the 17th, whatever begins on the 2nd, you should start to see the fruits of the intention or the new beginning. And if you get to this point and you're feeling frustrated, you want to re-strategize, recalibrate, readjust, this is the moment to do it. But do it tactfully. If you're feeling frustrated or you're feeling like the adrenaline's pumping a bit too much, you may need to simmer down on the 17th of October. But that 11th house is a house of benefactors that assist your professional life and your work. It's the house of charity. It's the house of dreams and goals. It's a house of groups and associations that we're connected to. It's a very social place, even friendships. This house is where we go to charity events with other people. We're ambassadors for the underdog and we fight the good fight. So that full moon can be inflammatory and you can see a lot of exacerbation happen on this day. But at the very least, you have the potential for you, Gemini rising, to express yourself or enjoy the moment in the spotlight that began on the 2nd of October. And if it's not feeling organic or in line with you, this is the moon. This is the time of the month to readjust and reset. The sun is transiting in Libra, opening up the month of October until the 22nd, and the sun traditionally is in fall in the sign of Libra. It's out of its league, if you will. It doesn't feel completely content in the sign of Libra. This is your fifth house, Gemini rising, which we've just been talking about, that house of joy and pleasure. On the 13th of October, the sun in full trines retrograde Jupiter in Gemini, your first house. Jupiter just went into a retrograde on the 9th in your first house. And on the 13th, the sun connects in a trine. So it's an easier aspect. But what's easier is to throw the baby out with the bathwater regarding a diet, something that you said you were going to do, you all of a sudden go no, or a partner doesn't come through. It could be over optimism and it falls a bit short. You could be a little bit bamboozled on this day, like too much exacerbation going on in that fifth house that could possibly have you feeling, do I have the energy? Do I have what it takes to make something stick? So it could be a difficult day to navigate on the 13th. On the 14th, only the next day, the sun in full then squares off with Mars in Cancer, your second house of finance, assets. This is the house of possessions and your money and skills that you have that support you. So the fifth house and the second house in the square could be a partner, a romantic partner, loses their job, for example, it affects your money, or you can have an argument about money. There could be tension, there could be sexual tension between you and a partner regarding wealth, something very strange or odd like that could be happening for you, Gemini rising. You could also potentially see difficulty in finding and rallying in support and money to go on a date, go on a holiday, or do something that you really want to do that's near and dear to your heart. It could all come down to the money and if it's available at the end of the day on the 14th of October. Then on the 22nd, the sun ingresses into Scorpio, your sixth house, until November 21st. So the sun for 4 weeks in that sixth house of sickness, health, fitness, your physical body, hygiene, the house of services that you utilize or services that you provide for other people. It's the house of where we put a lot of heavy lifting in assisting others. It's to do with co-workers, your career. It's the house of pets. So these subjects are lit up like a Christmas tree, if you will, from the 22nd of October to November 21st. For you, Gemini rising, I wonder if this is the moment where you start to see, if you will, what's been habitual that has kept you in a state of predictability. What you're strongly fixated on could be highlighted, and you may start to begin to make some changes from the 22nd of October to November 21st regarding things that are habitual, that have been going on constantly. It's like the norm. You may want to change up things with workers, co-workers, careers, services, pets, your hygiene, your health, getting on top of ailments. This is the moment where you can try to detangle yourself or unstick yourself, because that Scorpio is a fixed water yin sign. So it fixates and it sticks with something for a very long time that it's emotionally connected to. It runs really deep. So when the sun's transiting here, it may be obvious of what's so predictable or sticky or has you stuck in a rut with those 6 house topics. It might be easy for you to start to see the forest for the trees. Mercury, now let's talk about your ruling planet. I'm sure this is what you're here for, right? Gemini rising. What's my planet doing? What aspects is my planet having with other planets? It's okay. Your Cosmic Girl 101's got you covered. Opening up the month, Mercury, your ruling planet, is transiting in the sign of Libra, your 5th house of joy and pleasure. On the 6th of October, your ruling planet squares off with Mars in full in Cancer. Mars is in its full position, doesn't like being in Cancer. And this is your 2nd house of finance. So you're trying to get creative on this day regarding your finances and your investments, your creative pursuits, or a partner. You could be trying to iron out nuances that affect your joy and pleasure house, the 5th house, and see if you've got the money and the support to do the things that you really enjoy, or even with a romantic partner, or a personal creative project, or an investment, or children. Can we afford to have children? These sorts of subjects could be on your mind, or possibly trying to get fitter, like enjoy sports. Get out there and enjoy a sporting event, but do you have the money to do it? Or do you need to go to the gym? Can you afford the gym membership? Something as basic as that, but it can be a difficult day to navigate on the 6th of October. So your ruling planet then on the 8th, transiting in that 5th house, trines Jupiter in detriment in Gemini, your 1st house. It hasn't gone retrograde yet until the 9th. So Mercury trining back to your 1st house, your ruling house, the planet that rules your house. This is good for setting some nice structures in your life, like setting boundaries. What works, what doesn't, what feels good. If things feel off, have the conversation, make the changes now. Stick to a plan about your future. It's easier to commit on the 8th if you found it hard to commit to something that you know is going to grow and flourish in the future, connected to the 5th house topics. On the 13th, your ruler then ingresses into Scorpio, that 6th house, until November 2nd. So Mercury, your ruling planet that rules the body, rules your psychology, rules your image, rules how people see you. It's the self. You're very mercurial. If you're a Gemini rising, you're a mover, you're a shaker. You think on your feet, you're intelligent, you're quick to act, you like information, you like to travel. There's lots going on with you if you have Mercury as your planetary ruler in your first house of the self. So Mercury now in that 6th house is like it's on, like a lot of work and a lot of energy going towards other people and services. It's the house of work, the house of sickness. It's where you get down to the deets and you really get into putting your hands in the dirt and getting dirty. You're really pulling up the sleeves and getting a job done when Mercury's transiting in that 6th house of work. On the 30th, your ruling planet then opposes retrograde Uranus in your 12th house, and this is Taurus. So what's happening here for you, I think, Gemini rising, is I just don't want the past to keep holding me back. There could be something that's going on in the day-to-day that's not changing, and it's hard to shift or change. So it could be a difficult day to navigate on the 30th for you. So if you are easily exacerbated mentally, like people push your buttons, if there is potentially a mental health issue that you could be trying to work through, this could be the day where you can feel very, very lit and frustrated. So an astrology heads up. You could be feeling very moody. That's a good word on the 30th. Then on the 31st of October, happy Halloween. If you celebrate Halloween, the veils are thin. You can tune into your spiritual, esoteric practices and sides of your life on the 31st, where you can really feel the downloads, if you will, get into your spiritual sides of life. Because it's not all work. There's another dimension to us as humans. So your ruling planet trines retrograde Neptune in Pisces, your 10th house. So what's easier on this day, because it is a trine Gemini rising, your ruling planet is connecting well with retrograde Neptune in your career house and your public professional life. So this could be a nice turnaround or a changing of the guard, if you will, regarding your career that helps you on the day-to-day. You could have a really nice public moment in the spotlight on the 31st of October. Planet Venus. So she's been transiting in Scorpio and continues here in your 6th house. And Venus, unfortunately, is in a detriment. So she's in a sign that's, contrary to her personality, because it's ruled by Mars. We all know about the Venus-Mars story. So Venus transiting in your 6th house, trying to get creative and creating harmony on the day-to-day, especially with your career, your pets, your health. You're trying your very best to, feel good, but are you? It almost feels like you're putting on a brave face, or you're doing a lot of heavy lifting for other people, because that 6th house is where we get down and dirty. And you may feel that you need to develop a better relationship with your 6th house topics, or even what's been habitual to you. You're trying to, get creative is what I would say you may be experiencing, Gemini rising, with Venus transiting in that 6th house in a detriment. On the 8th of October, Venus trines Mars in full in Cancer, your 2nd house. This is interesting. Venus and Mars trining one another, the two opposites, in harmony. So your 6th house and your 2nd house. So what's easy here is you get a nice contract that boosts your money house. You could also see co-workers or new people walk through your door from your workplace that really are more supportive for you. You feel pretty good on the 8th of October regarding financial transactions or deals that improve your sense of support and safety when it comes to your money and investments. So not a bad day at all on the 8th of October, Gemini Rising. On the 14th of October, only the next day, no, it's not the next day, Venus on the 14th opposes retrograde Uranus in your 12th. So Venus, it's like something that's like a habit or normal to you is opposed to something or someone dragging you down or holding you back. So there could be no movement on this day, and that could be frustrating. So something in the 12th house, it's unseen, it's hidden, it's old, it's concealed, is bothering you on the 12th or on the 14th of October. So it could be something in your daily environment that's not changing, and you can see it or you can feel it. So take it easy. You may need to have a heart-to-heart on this day with someone connected to the 6th house topics that is anchoring you to the past or anchoring them in the past and not moving forward. Then on the 17th, Venus ingresses into Sagittarius, your 7th house, until November 11. Venus transiting in your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, contracts, agreements, negotiations, the house of rest, the house of endings, the house of pleasure, the house where it's all about other people. It's where we put a ring on it, we sign on the dotted line, we shake hands, we agree, and it's very contractual because we find value in what we're connecting with. So Venus, when she's transiting in your 7th house of relationships from the 17th of October to November 11, life is sweet. Why is that? Because you've got Jupiter now retrograde in your 1st house, opposing that 7th house where Venus will be transiting, and Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius. So you may feel and be really prepared to retrace or reconnect with relationships, go back over contracts. It may be easier for you to have some serious conversations, get some more structure and order in the 7th house. If you need to readjust, recalibrate agreements, relationships, holidays, pleasure, this is the transit to do it, because Venus in the 7th house can only be sweet as. Mars transiting in full position in Cancer, your 2nd house, is in your 2nd house, Gemini rising, until November 3rd. It won't be leaving that house until then, and then it'll be ingressing into Leo, your 4th house. Stay tuned for that upcoming video. That'll be an interesting transit. Mars going into your 3rd house. Interesting. In the sign of Leo, no less. But it's in Cancer until November 3rd, in your 2nd house of finances, assets, resources, money, things that support you, skills that you develop that support the self and give you a sense of, I know something, I've learned something, and I feel good about it, and I feel that I can now use these skills in a practical way that will support me in the long term. That's the 2nd house. But you've got Mars in a place here that it doesn't like functioning in. It's very out of its depth, if you will. And Mars can really stir things up in that 2nd house of finance, of support, and what money is to you, what it means to you. You could be rallying finances, being hyper-focused and hyper-vigilant on, bringing in the money, being very protective and possibly even secretive or clandestine about your finances, not wanting to share, keeping a cunning kit on the side, for example, stashing things away, because Mars in Cancer can make you feel unsafe or feel uncertain or hyper emotional about finances. That's what you could be dealing with in the 2nd house. So how to use Mars intelligently when it's in a fall sign is to develop new muscles, new strategies. Do your research about how you can make your money work for you. You're not a slave to it. It's your friend. And how does it benefit you? Connect with people that know how to build wealth that's sustainable, that makes you feel very secure. This is a good way to use Mars in Cancer if you're feeling out of your depth, you're feeling emotional, you're feeling insecure. Develop new strategies, rally in supports, because they'll be around you no matter what, Gemini rising. When Mars is transiting in fall in Cancer, your second house, all the way till November 3rd. On the 24th of the month, Mars then sextiles retrograde Uranus in Taurus, your 12th house. So this is easier. What's easier is possibly dropping the ball and getting into debt, not seeing the forest for the trees, not knowing a contract that could be sticky for a very long time. If you want to plan anything regarding long distance travel, know the costs and the details before you agree to anything financial, and financial transactions could be tricky on the 24th of October. The 28th, Mars then trines retrograde Neptune in Pisces, your 10th house. And this could be feeling fuzzy or unclear about your direction in the workplace. How is it going to help your finances? Are there changes going on in your workplace? And even though it's a trine, which is an easier aspect astrologically, it just could be easier to feel uncertain about your future in a workplace, for example, or your role. Do you need to develop more skills? Are the people around you in your workplace supportive of that? Or do you feel that things are slipping from your workplace that don't support you anymore? Could be a tricky day, even though it's a trine on the 28th of October. Halloween, 31st of October. The moon is in fall in Scorpio and it's in its waning phase, so it's dying down in light. And this is your 6th house, but it trines Mars in fall in Cancer, your 2nd house. I've got 3rd house here. I'll have to correct that. So when you have a trine with the moon and Mars, because the moon is the planet that rules the sign of Cancer, so you've got them lining up nicely. What you could see is more relaxing, or finances loosening up or becoming more available, or settling if there's been any differences between your work and finances, or things on the day-to-day. Things are easier to deal with, more support coming in on the 31st of October. Not a bad day at all financially for you, Gemini rising, on the 31st of October. Halloween, no less. Stay cosmic, Gemini rising. Thanks for tuning in to your astrology video for the month of October 2024. Look, we're in eclipse season, so there's still that feeling of change, things out of the blue happening to you or to people around you. So be flexible, which you can definitely do that as a Gemini rising. You're very flexible and adaptable. But try not to overcompensate, be a people pleaser, know what's good for you, know your hard lines and your boundaries is my advice, especially with Jupiter transiting in your 1st house. It could feel overwhelming or over-optimistic because it is in detriment in your 1st house. Okay, Gemini rising, ways to support the Cosmic Girl 101 YouTube channel. Book a reading with your Cosmic Girl. I provided the email if you want to reach out and you've got any questions that keep grating on you, for example. I may be able to illuminate some paths forward for you to help you with your own natal chart. So feel free to connect with me. And even if you want a tarot reading, I'm happy to do that, Gemini rising. And the simple things like the video, share it, comment on the video, subscribe if you haven't done already. And thank you if you are a return listener. I do appreciate your ongoing support. Hit the bell notification button, all these little nuances that you may be going, they do help expand the channel and reach people that are also interested in the subject of astrology. So I appreciate your support. If you can do those little things for me, that'd be awesome. Okay, Gemini rising, have a fabulous month of October, and I'll catch you next time.